Okay. And we are live. We're live for the very first time in 2024 on KRUI. You're listening to Save the Vibes, live on KRUI 89.7 FM, Iowa City. I'm your host, Sweet Jorna. And guys, that was a good break. Surprisingly, that felt like a million years long, and I have come back a different person. I think 2024 is off to a good start. I know those are famous last words, especially given that it's a leap year and an election year. Those haven't gone too well since like 2012. But I'm feeling good. We'll call this manifestation for the time being. Now, I don't follow the news as closely as I should during breaks or any period that my schedule is like majorly thrown off. So I'm a little crusty on what all has happened in the world since we were last on air. But what I have been keeping an eye on is Palestine, because who isn't? How could you not be invested in watching what's happening in Gaza? Not only are we seeing the persistent continuance of the bombing campaigns by Israel, but now bigger questions such as possible international recognition of an ongoing genocide and shaking up the worldwide politics are being asked. On the Israel-Gaza War, I know that the public is, about now, suffering a wave of media fatigue. Gaza has probably been all over your social media feeds, going on 3 months now, and I get it. It's surely not healthy to see horrendous videos of death and destruction between memes all day, and who knows the implication of doing that in like 10 years or so to our brains. But I want to remind everyone experiencing this fatigue that the people living in a war zone are tired of war too. As long as we've been seeing it online, they have been living it and beyond. It's been over 100 days of no break from death and destruction for those in Gaza. It's been over 100 days of the worst kind of worrying every single day for anyone with a connection to Gaza. People from there, people with family there, people generally of Palestinian descent. So while the fatigue is a truth in its own right, the absolute least I can do as a person with no connection to Palestine is just continue to care and spread any useful information I can. With that being said, a general rundown of the conflict for anyone that is unaware of what's been unfolding and is that back on October 7th of 2023, Hamas, the governing entity of Gaza, an Islam-inspired political and militancy group, forged a brutal invasion by land, air, and sea on Israeli settlements in Palestinian territory, terrorizing villages, killing 1,139 civilians. That's the revised number according to Al Jazeera. And taking over 240 hostages back into the Gaza Strip. For those raising an eyebrow, there's a reason I started at that point in history. I'll add more context in a second. Israel immediately responded with its most deadly modern bombing campaign yet. That same campaign is still unfolding today with no signs of slowing yet, and the primary point of criticism against Israel in its response has been its drastically disproportionate death toll of civilian Palestinians. Currently, or as of last night when writing this, Al Jazeera reported that the Palestinian death toll to be 24,762 and counting since October 7th. There was one moderately successful ceasefire and hostage exchange that took place back in November that gave a little false hope about the war maybe slowing down, since diplomacy did prove itself to be possible, but it has since ended and the campaign has resumed, eventually even more brutally than before. One of the most significant developments that took place since the last show was that on December 29th, South Africa requested a review by the United Nations by the UN's International Court of Justice of Israel's actions in Gaza against the rules of the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of Genocide. Massive deal. A respected international court will be determining yes or no whether Israel is committing an act of genocide, which would necessarily call for broader worldwide intervention. The proceedings have already taken place, and now the verdict is all that's left to be released. In the case made by South Africa, it concluded with a list of direct expectations for what ideally would follow the verdict if it is in their favor. South Africa called for an immediate suspension of Israeli military and military affiliates' operation in the Gaza Strip, the taking of immediate measures to abide by the terms of the Convention on Genocide, Israel's acknowledge of the Palestinian people as being protected by the provisions of that Convention on Genocide, and the cease of global actions against Palestinians, along with the seizure and prevention of the displacement of Palestinians, the denial of food, water, and general access to humanitarian and medical aid, and the general destruction of Palestinian life. This was all followed by the prevention and direct and public incitements of genocide, state-sponsored or not. Israel, throughout its turn presenting evidence to the court, persistently maintained its claims that the Palestinian civilian death toll was the fault of Hamas for intentionally building its operational infrastructure so intentionally and thoroughly intertwined with the civilian population in Gaza to either discourage or increase the cost of retaliation. Israel also claims that it's simply defending itself from the genocidal threat Hamas poses to the entire Jewish population. Israel also mentioned in its opening statements to the court that it feels a high moral obligation to prevent any form of genocide, as the Jewish people faced such a crime only a few decades ago. However, South Africa, who filed the inquiry into against Israel, South African politicians speaking on the matter have also stated that there is a feeling of obligation to prevent any furtherance of Israeli apartheid regime and alleged genocide against Palestinians, as apartheid in South Africa only ended 30 years ago, and its implications are still readily visible today. The decision to request a review of Israel's actions were largely motivated by pressure from citizens in South Africa who have been consistently protesting in the streets and finding other innovative ways to get the attention of the South African government. In addition, South Africans and Palestinians have stood in longtime solidarity with one another, with even Nelson Mandela himself calling Yasser Arafat, the former president of the Palestinian Liberation Organization, a quote-unquote comrade in arms, with the official beginning of apartheid in South Africa and the Nakba, the brutal expulsion of Palestinians from Palestine, both taking place in 1948. Another major update surrounding Israel-Gaza War is that Houthi pirates have been launching attacks against commercial ships in the Red Sea in support of Palestine. The Houthis are a Muslim armed political rebel group from Yemen. This week, the Houthis have been designated as an international terrorist organization by the Biden administration, and the US and the UK have launched joint airstrikes on Houthi targets in Yemen in the interest of global trade. The Red Sea is vitally important to global trade. The Red Sea directly leads to the Suez Canal, connecting the Indian Ocean to the Mediterranean Sea, and we may all remember what happened a few years ago when there was a legendary backup in the Suez Canal. Rerouting from that point requires a 10-day detour around the entire continent of Africa. The route is fundamental to trade from China to the entire European market and the exportation of oil from various countries in the Middle East. As is the goal, this is making commerce incredibly expensive, especially for the hemisphere of countries and China that care more about money and the economy than human decency. I have to give it to them. Smart move by the Houthis in getting the West's attention, but we will have to keep a close eye and see how this escalates. As mentioned, the US and UK have already responded, with President Biden stating that he's willing to take further measures to restore trade. But regardless, the current backup is reportedly costing hundreds of millions of dollars an hour, and that cost will eventually be offloaded onto consumers in the coming future. This raises many, many grander questions about the next move on a global scale. According to the Houthis, as long as the war is raging in Gaza, ships will continue to be attacked. If ships continue to be attacked, other countries are going to intervene. There is already discussion of intervention by additional European countries, plus China's domestic economy is not in a desired trajectory, making the commerce issue all the more encouraging of Chinese intervention as well. The Houthis are backed by Iran, which Israel has been keeping a very, very close eye on militarily since the unfolding of October 7th, because Hamas is also backed by Iran. There's also a rift that's been developing between Israel and its biggest supporter, the United States. With the verdict on South Africa's case against Israel looming as the determinant of whether Israel is committing genocide or not. If genocide is declared, the U.S. will be in an incredibly compromising position to having to intervene alongside the UN, and will either double down on its stance with a genocidal nation or undermine itself for being the primary aid of a genocidal nation. A lot is currently being tied into Israel and Gaza, and we'll keep a close eye on the unfolding of it all, because it is such a heated time in geopolitics. As for catching up on domestic news, even local, the Iowa caucus took place this past Monday, and it set the tone for the kickstart of the presidential race. Donald Trump took the Iowa Republican Party by a long shot, polling at 51%, according to the New York Times, taking 98 of Iowa's 99 counties. Ron DeSantis came in second at 21%, and Nikki Haley at 19%, taking our beloved home of Johnson County as the only county she won. Chris Christie dropped from the race just one day before the polling, and Vivek Ramaswamy dropped immediately after the vote was called, coming in at just under 8% and endorsing Trump. This is significant because for the past month, it felt like, I swear, the entire month of December, these Republican candidates did not leave the state of Iowa. Ron DeSantis campaigned hard, visiting all 99 counties in the state, and I must say, impressive for a Florida man this time of year. And Haley and Ramaswamy followed not far behind in terms of campaign trailing. Donald Trump, however, just kind of dabbled around with campaigning in Iowa. I believe, don't quote me on this, but somewhere buried in my pile of New York Times article that Trump only visited the state 12 times, and that sounds like a lot, but compared to DeSantis' 99 county road trip, that's pretty minuscule. Despite the mini campaign, Donald Trump won the state Republican Party by a 30-point margin. That's objectively very impressive. If there's one thing I have to give Donald Trump, he's got impeccable riz. Nothing interesting happened on the Democratic side as there's an incumbent president, but I wanted to end this off by telling a little about my own experience at the caucus. I attended my first caucus. I was reporting results for the Edison Research Center at the location in Solon, Iowa, just north of Iowa City, still in Johnson County. I received intel from some Iowans, some native Iowans I know personally, that apparently in school it's emphasized here that the caucus is a very important political function that Iowa has the privilege of hosting first in the nation, which I will not deny, but I just want to say to all the lifetime Iowans listening right now that outside of the state, a couple places in New England, like Nevada, nobody really knows what a caucus is. I never heard of it until the 2016 election when Iowa made big time national news for both Democratic and Republican parties. But to those that don't know what a caucus is, it's basically a more interactive version of a standard primary race. There is opportunity to hear messages from candidates in the party and fellow community members to support that candidate. I did not participate as I'm a voter in the state of Texas, but it was still really interesting to witness, and dare I say, beautiful. The one I attended took place in a church. It felt like a town hall meeting. It was very apparent that everyone knew one another and were surprised to see each other showing up as Republicans in Johnson County, small demographic. But overall, the air of the room was quite comfortable. This may have been because there was a rural setting that I was personally in, but despite the extent of political polarization that's felt by all and heavily perpetuated in mainstream media coverage, the room was open for discussion. I'll say the vibe was completely different than any Young Americans for Freedom event I've attended on campus for sure. Maybe that had to do with the political presence in the vicinity. It was a Republican caucus, therefore everyone was Republican. But no matter how much infighting there may be within the party, ultimately the presence of all of these people supporting different candidates was for the same party. Conservatives probably aren't going to like my consensus, but I feel like it was a government-sponsored safe space. An arena for civil political discussion free of hostility. That was so beautiful. That was what was so beautiful about the proceedings. Intentionally or not, the caucus served as a meeting place for mostly like-minded individuals to respectfully disagree, shake hands, and go home at the end of the night. I think it's a shame that more functions like this don't take place. It would greatly combat the animosity present in most all political discussion today. And I think it's especially important for people that are not in school or like college age students to have such a setting when you're not a student and you're solely responsible for with whom you interact, the ideas you're exposed to, the backgrounds of the people you interact with. There can be a dramatic drop off of places in which you can have a mediated discussion. And if those discussions are happening at all, it's largely with people that are chosen to be in one's inner circle, aka people that already agree with you. The caucus served as a classroom setting. It pulled together an entire community of people that showed up in person to humanize one another's political opinions. I want to end this off by saying this is how we combat polarization. Start with your own political parties. Democrats too. I know Democrats are more open to the idea of explicitly hosting a safe space, but that often becomes justification in believing that they don't need to host a safe space or any function like it because the work is already done. That's not true, but the sooner it's embedded in broader society how to respectfully disagree with one another and cooperate across all lines of political belief, the sooner more effective progress can be made on issues that people genuinely care about. I challenge everyone listening to consume one piece of media that they are well aware that they disagree with, but try not to shut down when seemingly stupid opinions are stated. And just take a moment to hear the opposition out. Try to genuinely understand where they're coming from. That doesn't mean agree, it just means respectfully give it the time of day. For some, that piece of media may very well be this show, and that's fine. Just give it a try, you know? Also, lucky for those people, that's all I have for today. So we'll be back on air next Saturday, same time, same place. Here's a gentle reminder that all shows are streamed on Twitch, and if you want the visuals or to see what discussion happens for the rest of my time slot when I'm not on air, that's over at twitch.tv/LennyTheFool. That's LENY_TheFool. If you want to reach out with any questions, comments, concerns, suggestions, I'm on all major social media platforms, also at Lenny the Fool. That's LENY_TheFool. You're listening to Save the Vibes live on KRUI. It's good to be in 2024, despite the weather it's been dumping on the Midwest. So, Iowa City, stay warm, have a lovely rest of your Saturday, and back to your regularly scheduled tunes. Okay, dude, I'm sorry. I did not realize that the jams were playing. I'm going to have to cut that out because YouTube is being very mean to me because of music playing in the background. Luckily, I don't think I said anything important. So, I was going to include information about, like, the upcoming election in South Africa and how that might change Israel and Palestine, and I was going to the origin of the Houthis, and I was going to throw in like 2 other news stories, and then I realized that was way too much research to be doing. I was like passing out 1 a.m. Mind you, my bedtime is like 10. Falling asleep at my kitchen table. Falling asleep at the kitchen table. Bro, okay, I'm looking very iced out. I didn't realize it was that white. It still has this camera still got like the twilight filter on it. And so let's see if we can add some color. Did that work? If I move over a little bit, Better view of the hair. It's why are 4 people back in here? The show's over. Anywho, yeah. There was a lot of information. Bro. I need a tech thing. One emoji thing. Your, what are they called? There's a name for them. An emote. Oh, you know what I should do? I should try the screen share thing. I'm gonna scroll through. Let me see if this is open. Dude, this thing kills me. Did Juan not hear any of that stuff I was saying directly to him? Juan, you were right the whole time. Your music is good. I'm listening to Earth Gang. JID is in there. I know you've talked about JID. I'm looking at the levels right now. The stream is looking at the levels right now, so the audio's gotta be working. But if we go back to this, you can bet on stupid stuff. That's the point that I was getting to. These are funny. If you actually keep up with the news, these are really funny. And I bet someone's probably actually really good at this. Despite there's probably no mathematical equation that's predicting the outcome of any of these stocks, any of these bets you can place. No legitimate math. Just like public opinion. But I want to learn more about this because this is really fun. A lot of people were saying, oh, if you can bet on elections. The big controversy is that Kalshi wants to bet on upcoming elections. It's an election year. Should you be able to bet on individual elections? I think it would be fun. I see what they mean. You know, it undermines the integrity of elections. There's financial incentive to change your vote. But I think that's kind of already happening. That's just kind of coming with, that just kind of comes with, I don't know, democracy. Like, stupid people are going to be voting anyway, whether they decide to change it because of a bet that the entire country's not taking place in. If they're stupid enough to do that, they're stupid enough to do it anyway. But I think this is good. This is almost like a running public opinion poll. I want to see for the next presidency. Even start it now. Let's do a Joe Biden approval rate, like stock. Let's track it for the whole year, how it fluctuates. I think you should be able to bet on stuff like that because I think it's another layer, another direct layer, a direct way that people can have more of a say in democracy. You know, research centers only poll presidential approval so often, and they come after certain events. I want to see immediate effects. I want to be able to get on my friggin' Robinhood app and look at the entire year, the fluctuation of the Joe Biden approval rating. And I want to see it every single day, not just when they run those polls. That could be a good idea. I don't know how you would place bets into that. I guess you could put two charts, two stocks. One is approval rating, one is disapproval. You know, overlay them and just compare there. But this is pretty cool. I'm going to check out this website. If I'm a millionaire by the end of the year, it's because I read the news. And I'm betting on it. But it doesn't look like much else is happening in the chat. I don't know if there's anything else I wanted to mention on screen. on air. I keep saying I'm going to live stream, and it never happens outside of this time slot. Brandon Pill, you're the only one in here. Any questions about the news? Haven't heard any updates on Sophia Slut and her death. Say how godlike I am on pub. Look, I've been playing PUBG more often than normal. A lot of time to play pub over this break. But, I don't know. One day I just woke up and was good. 5 kills, 1 round. I'm typically getting 1 kill a week. And I went 5 kills, 1 round, and I've been getting a kill every round since. So, I'm like, PUBG should sponsor me. I'm their best player. The Fiji guy. Alright, how's it going? Hello? You seem new. We're having a grand old time talking about the news. If you have any news to talk about, throw it in the chat. I only curate 1 song to play on the radio. If I were good at this, I'd do more, but I'm not. I would love to be like a journalist streaming. Let me just play pub and talk about the news. That would be great. That's the life. What kind of news? Just the news, international news. Let's see. Right now, since you seem new here, I'm hosting a radio show. I'm on a college campus. That's where we are now, at the radio station. I just got off air, and we were talking about, what did we talk about? Israel-Palestine, the case against Israel brought by South Africa, talked about the Houthis, the pirates in the Red Sea, talked about friggin' the Iowa Caucus, surprisingly a very cool function. I think I'm off, man. I think I'm going to cut the stream here, start making my long trek back. Actually, for you, Brandon Pill, I know you're in Texas, but let's look at this. This is outside right now. If you can see if it'll adjust. It's way too bright. It's way too bright, but there's literally snow everywhere. I wonder if you can see over there. No. Okay, never mind. Not working. Trekked through a lot of snow to get here. I think what's the high today? High today is 7 degrees. Oh, you will see. Alright, yeah. I think I'm gonna end this. Head back. Eat some food. But, Fiji, cool to have you here. We'll be back. Over yonder in the 806 is 34. It wasn't until moving to Iowa, of course, Texas native, never seen temperatures below 20 degrees. Literally, after having a week of the high temperatures be like 1 degree, 5 degrees, you become so grateful for like 34. I'm gonna be at the park. I'm gonna have a picnic tomorrow. High's like 30. It makes you so grateful. I understand now why, Midwest niggas be walking around with like basketball shorts in the middle of like 40-degree weather. It's because after -17, 40 feels like summer. But when I go back to Texas, 34 is very cold. So I'm gonna head out, start my trek back. It's cold. Be back in the stew next week. I'll see you guys. Au revoir. Later, chat.